All right, a little bit of a talking head video today. You guys can go ahead and minimize it if you want. This is just one of those things where more often than not, these videos come about because of the fact that I'll log into Twitter and sometimes late at night, and then I'll see a bunch of mentions. Jay, did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? Jay, talk about this, talk about this. And then I come to find out that something's going on that I think we need to talk about. So the 30 series launch has already been plagued with bots and scalping and just all sorts of just bad taste this time around. I mean, just no matter which way you look at it, it's a terrible situation. There's not enough product to meet demand. NVIDIA says that they severely underestimated it, which I don't really truly believe, but regardless, scalpers and botters are buying up the inventory that is available. Now NVIDIA is saying something about it won't even be like normalized until like 2021 in terms of availability, and it's just a big mess. But the sad part about all of that is the scalpers, and that's the thing, they're opportunists, and it's kind of hard to fault an opportunist, especially if, a thing is only as valuable as someone's willing to pay for it. And if someone buys a thing for $700 and someone's willing to pay $1,500 for it, then that thing is at that value for that person at that time at that purchase. And so that's just the way it works. And until demand can normalize to where there's enough product or more product than there is people wanting it, the prices are going to stay out of control. But what happens when it appears that a brand is participating in the scalping? And that's what we're talking about today. There's no sponsors on this video because I don't think anyone was going to want their name attached to a video talking about a potentially nefarious acts from another brand. So why don't you guys go downstairs, go down in the description, go downstairs under this video and buy some merch. I'm going to be turning off that product forever. Turning off, yeah, I'm gonna be turning off the product. Turning it off from the store, Phil, it's gonna be gone. You're not gonna be able to buy it anymore, and I'll be cutting it off this month. So as soon as it's gone, you're never gonna be able to get those shirts again. So this story is brought to you by us and Reddit. So a little bit of backstory. We're talking about the MSI being accused of scalping their own products. Now I'm gonna be using a lot of words like allegedly and accused and potentially and stuff like that, because the act of an MSI subsidiary or a company that is owned by MSI, you see, God, there's so much backstory in this. And I feel like this is an important video because it helps you guys understand why sometimes I'll choose to talk about one thing and not another, because I understand the way the back end works. I understand the way that it works with these international companies. For instance, you got MSI, which is MicroStar International. And what'll happen is basically they will open up other companies in the various regions that they operate under those local laws and company corporate formation laws and such. And then they're all owned by an international company, which in this case is Taiwan-based MSI, right? And so if we talk about companies kind of going rogue, which is what appears to be what's sort of happening here, and again, there's a lot of pieces to this, so please bear with me. If we rewind to earlier this year, when Steve did a video basically referring to it as the kill shot for MSI, it was brought to light that the UK-based MSI company, and remember that's a independently operated corporate company within MSI, but the MSI Taiwan does not actually hands-on with all these companies on a day-to-day basis. Of course, they're hands-on with these companies, but on a day-to-day, they're run by whatever managers and or presidents or whatever are established for those individual regions. That's the same with Asus, that's the same with EVGA, that's the same with Gigabyte, right? The major players, ASRock, they're all structured that way. You can't have a corporate entity in one country doing business everywhere else without establishing companies in those countries as well. So that's why when it comes to the whole thing that Steve did about the idea of MSI trying to control messaging of reviewers and apparently strong-arming smaller reviewers into twisting the message, or in this case, somebody had a poor laptop review and then MSI was supposedly or allegedly gonna pay him to not put it up, and then when he said no, they basically went after him with like a takedown notice and all that sort of stuff. That was a rogue action for that particular company. We put out a video saying that we've never experienced anything like that, but then again, larger channels are able to really call the shots more than smaller channels who are trying to be up and comers. No matter how you put it, that's wrong. Whether you're leaning on a big company or a small company or a big reviewer or a small reviewer, there needs to be a level playing field for everybody. Everyone needs to play by the same rules. So I understood in that instance what was happening is we got on the phone with MSI, and it's one of those things where they explained to us like who did what, and okay, yeah, that one's kind of passed. I think that was in like July or June or something like that. Now fast forward only a few months later, it comes to light that there's a company by the name of Starlit, right? Microstar, Starlit, that is apparently on Amazon and on eBay, just scalping the hell out of 3080s and 3090s. Now, a lot of people started doing digging on this because you can also find a whole lot of quote unquote scamming happening on this. A lot of people complaining that they bought graphics cards and not just 30 series, and we'll talk about that in a sec, but we're buying things on this company Starlit, and not getting their product. Filing claims, it's got terrible reviews. So initially what people thought is that this was a company that was set up to appear to be MSI, because if you look at who owns the trademark Starlit, it's owned by MSI Computer Corp. Now MSI Computer Corp is what some of the subsidiaries of Microstar International in different countries, the United States being one of them. So people started going, holy crap, is this company that's scalping these graphics cards MSI? Now you gotta understand the time difference, the time zones, and the regions that are in play here. So this was all discovered in the United States last night at about, 10:30 at night, maybe 9:30 at night. And so the United States office is already closed, and it's very difficult to get a hold of anyone after hours. The Taiwan and China office, however, were just starting their day. So Steve did a really good piece. If you guys go and watch his video, it was a live stream. He basically recapped how he pretended to be a customer, calling up people wanting to, within the MSI organization in China and in Asia, Taiwan and China, pretending to be a customer wanting to check the validity of this Starlit company because of the poor reviews and such. You should go and watch it. There was some back and forth there, whether it was legit or not legit, and that was the difference between a low tier employee versus a higher tier like management employee. But MSI does offer rebates that are basically handled through Starlit. So it started looking more and more like this company is legitimately owned by MSI, which at that point is not looking too good here, because you really are hoping that this is some sort of fraudulent action taking place, pretending to be MSI, because that gives MSI a real good foot to stand on to say, that's not us. But unfortunately, the more it was dug into, the fact that the trademark for Starlit being a part of MSI Computer Corp was filed by a lawyer means that the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, and it was starting to look pretty poorly here. So Steve did a video about that. What he found was that the more people he talked to at MSI, the more he mentions the whole Starlit scalping fiasco. They're like, the what now? Like they had no idea what he was talking about. Now, to be fair, the news had just sort of broken on Reddit. And in fact, the Reddit post was marked as misleading and misinformation, which I think now needs to be redacted because of the fact that it is proven that this company that was scalping these graphics cards is indeed owned by MSI. MSI put out a statement saying that Starlit is a subsidiary of MSI. They also went on to say that this company basically handles refurbs, maybe second, and what I mean by seconds is when a product goes down the production line, it's not perfect every time. Sometimes there's blemishes, or might be some sort of a defect in there that doesn't necessarily affect its performance, but it affects its ability to be sold as like brand new, perfect. And so you get what these companies will do is they'll set up a second company that goes in and just sells all these sort of refurbished products. Just that way they're not wasted material that they recycle and get very little return on, where there's still value for it to be sold as a new product. It's the same reason when you go to the mall and you see like the Coach store or the outlet mall, like the Nike shoe store. Not only are those often going to be like last season's or last generation product, it's also damaged product. Or like, let's just say handbags, for instance. It's the best thing I could think of is one, my wife's a handbag snob. Two, I've been willing to buy her some of these handbags because I learned about these stores where I'm like, you could get how much off because there's a stitch that's wrong? Sign me up. You'll have these handbags and stuff that sell for thousands of dollars when they're new or whatever, or hundreds of dollars depending on the brand. But because there may be a stitch wrong or a little bit of unraveling here, they'll send it to these outlet stores where they sell it heavily, heavily discounted. So that's sort of what Starlit is. And they also handle all the rebates and stuff for MSI, at least the rebates take you to their site. So that didn't look really good, considering the fact that there were listings on there for nearly double or double the price of what 3080s are supposed to go for. So MSI put out a statement saying that the subsidiary was apparently able to take advantage of these new 3080s, and not refurbs or damaged models or seconds, that they somehow were able to, by error, get their hands on these new products. And then someone within that organization, that company that was set up, that subsidiary, was scalping them and selling them for twice what they're worth. In fact, let me go ahead and just read the statement here, because I think it's important that that various things like this don't get truncated, because I think it's important to hear the exact wording. MSI says, Starlit Partner is an individual sales subsidiary working under MSI. They carry excess inventory and refurbished items and would not be given newly released products such as the GeForce RTX 30 series GPU. As such, we have conducted an investigation and found that an error allowed them to access inventory they were not permitted to handle. Starlit Partner has been instructed to contact the individual customers who purchased these GPUs and offer two options: return the product and receive a full refund, or a partial refund of the amount paid over MSI's MSRP. Moving forward, MSI will enforce a stricter policy to avoid situations like this happening again. Here's my problem with this statement. If this is true, based on what we saw with the whole UK reviewer fiasco, and this only a few months later, it tells us there is some serious organizational problems inside of MSI. Now, MSI is a multi-billion-dollar company. And it's easy for large companies like this with lots of small companies to have oversight where you can have these rogue actions. Two, I don't buy this whole error thing. When you have a product that is as desired as the 30 series with as little inventory as the 30 series, I would think you would know where every single one of your dozens of graphics cards are going. So I don't believe whatsoever that Starlit was able to get their hands on new graphics cards without MSI's parent companies and distributors within their own organization knowing where they're going. You track that stuff. Serial numbers, tracking, distribution, it's all managed and handled digitally as well. So there's no reason whatsoever they shouldn't have known that Starlit was getting these graphics cards. Second, the amount of people that have spoken up and said, this is complete bullshit because I bought my brand new 20 series cards from them, tells you that they've had access to new inventory for a lot longer than right now by some error. The error, I think, is that they got caught. And I have a feeling that MSI's parent company may not have known that this was happening, but someone within Starlit and someone within, I hope it's not the MSI US office because it's the ones we directly work with, but Starlit and all that is happening right here in the US. Someone knew and someone was intending to profit off of this, because here's the thing. If you're a multi-billion-dollar company, I would think that your reputation and your trust within the consumer is worth more than double the price of an $800 graphics card sold in the dozens of units. It's not enough to be any sort of profit. It's not enough to change any sort of bottom line. And if you're an investor and you keep seeing these types of stories coming out of MSI, not to mention the weirdness of, and I don't know how related this is, this could be tinfoil hat theory. Don't forget, earlier this summer, the CEO of MSI committed suicide. There is a lot of weird stuff happening right now within this organization. And it's one of those things where every time something like this happens, I think it weakens faith within the brand. Not only maybe amongst its own investors, its own employees, but definitely the consumers. And for us as reviewers, and I've said this a million times, my loyalty is to this audience, not to any of these brands. It makes it very difficult for us to want to consider working with these brands when these types of stories continue to happen. Let's rewind a few years and talk about the 10 series with EVGA, where they had VRMs that were sometimes catching fire, which was an extreme case, but other times where the VRM was under spec and people were getting their 1080 for the win cards that were basically going into a black screen, and then the fans would fully ramp because of a weird firmware thing that was happening with an underspec VRM that was not intentional. It just was one of those things that sort of cropped up over time. The way EVGA handled that by being transparent, saying we messed up, here's what we're going to do to fix it, calling reviewers in to see, look, here's our facility, here's how we're testing, here's how we're handling it with our customers, here's what we are doing. That is the way that you keep the trust of someone, especially the consumer, when something goes wrong. Because with any brand that's in business long enough, it's not when you mess up, or actually, yes, it is when you mess up. It's not if you mess up, it's when you mess up. And it's not the mess up that defines you, it's the way you handle it. And it's just these things that appear to be happening kind of over and over with MSI right now are really, really shaking the foundation of trust, in my opinion. I don't feel like this letter conveyed a feeling of regret or even sincerity or even an apology. There wasn't even an apology in here because they acknowledged that, yes, that brand is ours. They had access to cards. They didn't acknowledge that they were being scalped. They said they've had access to the cards they weren't supposed to. But there was no apology for it. There was no makeup to the customer saying, at MSI we believe in being transparent and yada. This was a very thrown together message. And I feel like this was a message that's almost like, oh crap, we were caught. It also doesn't even sound like there's gonna be, most of the time when there's any sort of disciplinary action, that stuff isn't really made public as to what the outcome is. But it doesn't even sound like there's gonna be any sort of a restructuring and or redesign in the way Starlit works. It was just moving forward, MSI will enforce a stricter policy to avoid situations like this from happening again. And that's really open to interpretation. What is stricter policy? Again, I don't believe for 1 second that Starlit accidentally, via error, gained access to the 30 series graphics cards, considering how many people told me they bought their 20 series graphics cards through them. And then considering the fact that they were established in 2016 says that I bet you someone out there also bought 10 series cards through them as well. So I feel like this is a situation where it was important for me to bring this up because this one was proven as true. And it's just unfortunate that a major player in the industry like this is caught really red-handed. And whether it's this Philip guy, who is the name that is on the voicemail of the company of Starlit. So if you call Starlit and they call their main company phone number, it always goes to a voicemail, and it's a voicemail to a guy named Philip. So that shows you that this is already probably a 1 or 2 man operation. It's probably all digital. It's probably nothing more than them having access to be able to do orders, and then they're probably shipped off by the very same MSI distribution company. But you would have to know that those orders are coming in from Starlit. And I'm sorry, that just tells you, if it's true, that they were able to sell 30 series cards, mark up the price, and it all goes through the MSI system. You would think, 1, that there'd be some sort of a flag of, hey, modified pricing. 2, we have orders coming in from Starlit that is not supposed to have these products. And 3, just shows you that there is very little oversight happening within MSI's organization that, in my opinion, makes it even harder to trust the brand right now. So this is where you guys kind of sound off down below. A lot of people were kind of urging me to make a video last night about it. I'm glad I waited. That way this morning it was all kind of able to settle and land a little bit. Yeah, MSI, it's time to really consider something else in terms of the way you guys are operating over there, because this is only going to get worse for you. Rather than trying to come out with these little half-assed messages telling people what you're going to do about it, make some serious changes from the top down and let time prove to your customers that you guys are doing the right thing and not pulling these shady acts. Because in a time when you needed trust that the brands were doing what they could to fight bots and fight scalping, and to find out you were doing it too, whether intentional or unintentional because of lack of oversight, it's still your name, it's still your company, and it's still your responsibility. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I just want to put this video out. I had to explain to you guys what was going on. It's sad, and I'm not happy about it. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.